Welcome back, friends. We sure do hope you're having a great summer, and we are so appreciative that you're joining us for the summer series, which is a recap of our 2024 Five Most Need Summit and some of the remarkable insights and best practices taken from that. We are so honored today to be joined by Suzan Haizlip, who has done some remarkable work in helping her team, her organization, and her learners get into a 5 moments of need mindset, as well as implementation through design and measurement. Just some remarkable work. We hope you enjoy the insights. Please let us know feedback or questions that you have. And so here we go. And we are so thankful again to Suzan for her remarkable work. Okay, friends, welcome back to another Performance Matters podcast series. Bob Mosher here, and we're so excited that you've chosen to join us in our summer series, as we've introduced it, on some of the follow-up to our 5 Moments of Need Summit we had this spring. And in there, we had some remarkable organizations attend. We had some terrific challenges brought up. And today, we are honored to have a remarkable colleague. Suzan will let her introduce herself and her organization rather than me try to do that myself. So would you please, friend, introduce yourself, your role and such, where you're coming to us from, and maybe a little bit about your journey to this in general, and then we'll kind of dig deeper into our topic.
Absolutely. So Suzan Haizlip, I work for MidFirst Bank in their Learning and Performance department. I've been in this department for 17 years and a week, 17 years and a week.
Wow.
And so, yeah, just had my anniversary. So we are tasked with basically doing all of the learning and performance for our entire organization. We're kind of split up into different factions, but we kind of have a hierarchical goal of taking care of those needs for our organization. I first met Bob and Con, I want to say it was 2010 at the learning conference in Orlando, and just kind of brought a lot of those ideas back to my team. And it was just kind of like downhill from there. We just kind of kept coming back and getting more and more information. Say downhill, not that it was bad, but that it was good. It was easy. Not in the way of like going uphill, but it was just great. I was just immediately invested in what they were saying and what they were trying to do. And that seems like eons ago, and so much has changed in that time frame, but brought all those ideas back, and we just kind of embraced them as a team and just got as much information as we could. And finally, in 2024, we're in a place where we're actually being successful in implementing a lot of those pieces that we've been studying and learning and just enveloped in for so long. So that's kind of how we got here, and it's been a very long and very educational journey so far.
We want to dig deeper into that, and your team is wonderful, and have done some really brilliant work. You do, and your leadership and others have been a huge part of that. And that kind of really segues, I think, perfectly into where we're going today, because this whole idea of, if you don't have an audience that gets this, if you're not moving the needle, I found it hard to roll this boulder up a hill, if you will, right? Because why wouldn't they just fall back on what they've always known? And feels like I get something out of it. Right? Yep. So this whole idea today, we're going to dig deeper into one of the challenges we talked about there was this idea of aligning the 5 moments with business goals, which I think L&D has tried to do forever, frankly, right? It's kind of bleeds into the ROI, side of things. But until I embraced 5 moments, it was tough to have that conversation. And so we wanted to dig deeper into your group and your experience in that. So it's all about positioning our department well. It may be differently. I would argue differently than L&D in most organizations has a long history before some of us even came along, right? So positioning is really big because we already positioned in a way. So aligning, what strategy did you take in understanding those business goals, and then of course maybe even bringing your team along about their thinking of being able to fulfill that promise?
Sure. Yeah, I kind of liken it to like a slow simmer, because I came on at like a year into this department existing within the company. We had a training department, but they were really just kind of like experts in the field that had done the job, and were now the ones that were tasked with making sure other people could do their jobs. And it really grew really quickly from like a 3-person department to a 7 in the span of about a year. And that's kind of when, we started bringing on all of the tools and all of the things that kind of would start that foundation so that we could be prepared to go to that next step, which was to kind of start introducing ourselves to the organization, starting to put our name out there aside from just the one small group that we were tasked with. And it was difficult because I think a lot of times business unit leaders are just kind of like, I'm just going to go with what I know and what we've always done. And there are a lot of external resources that they could use to get information, to get compliance and regulatory information. But what it wasn't meeting was the needs of the employees to become performers, or the employees to be good at their job. Like we could give them the information and make them read it, but all that is it's just it's knowledge without any action, right?
Yep.
So that was kind of where we started. And so we kind of started creating some relationships with our business units. The very first thing that we did was, seems like 100 years ago, we created a course catalog that we had printed on really nice paper, and we sent it out to all of the business unit leaders just so they knew, like, here we are, this is what we have to offer, here are all of our course descriptions. And we thought, if it was on paper and they could have it on their desks, it might be something that they may not look at right then, but it would be sitting there and they would think about it. And it was just kind of like it's kind of like if you think about becoming a new real estate agent or whatever, and so you send your business card out and you're like, well, maybe I'll get a couple of bites off of it, right?
Right.
And we did. Yeah, we had a little interest, just people asking, like, what are these courses? Who can take them? How much do they cost? Because that's, always a thing. So it just really, like, sending our business card out there and just like, here we are, we exist, we're a department, we're here to help you. These are the things that we have to offer right now. So seems so archaic looking at it now, but that was our foot in the door.
You got to start, right? You got to put that foot in the door. And it's a journey from being a service provider, which in some ways that first effort was, but they have to be aware of your services before they'll even bite, right? To this business partner, which I really do think is very different. I think L&D sometimes, I want to be awful careful, no malicious in here, but I think we fooled ourselves into thinking that providing services makes us a partner. I don't know if that's really the case sometimes, frankly. How can you give it some idea about how? And I love one of the words we talked about as we went back and forth in the notes here is leading partnership. I think that's a really important word versus just, well, it's going to happen. They see me this way already. Leading the organization into a very different kind of partnership or seeing us differently is work. There's an intentionality to it. What can you take us a bit down that road in your group?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think being a service provider is what corporate training used to be, right? I think it's just that feeding of information. We're a service, we're going to give you the stuff that you need, and then you're going to walk away and you're going to feel fulfilled, right? But I think taking it to that next level and taking it to a partnership is a lot about recognizing your roles, recognizing what strengths you have, what strengths that business unit has, what are their goals and objectives, and what are ours as a group. Because even though our job is to meet their needs and our job is to make sure that their people are performing, we also internally would have to have our own goals and objectives for staying ahead of the curve, understanding what's coming next, maintaining that expertise in the field, because learning and development is changing daily. I mean, everything is changing. You've got AI that changes everything on a dime. So it's moving so quickly that we have to have our own goals and objectives, but at the same time, those have to be working to the advantage of our organization. They have to be working to feed what their initiatives and what their goals are, because a lot of times some of that's going to line up when you're talking about technology, or you're talking about, right now you're talking about AI. A lot of that's going to line up. So if we can come to them as a partner and say, yep, you guys are dealing with AI and trying to figure out how you can use it to help your customers. We're using AI to help us generate content faster, or to help us, create scenarios or create whatever that make your people more prepared for that. So it's using the same language. It's coming at it with the same language and the same goals and the same overarching objective. And for them, it is, the bottom line most of the times. But for us, it's our customer, which is the performer, getting that organization to meet their goals and objectives. So it's just, I think it's the difference between, if you think of like a service provider being someone that, like, if you have a baby, you buy diapers or you buy formula, whatever, you're getting stuff from someone, but then you have a nanny who takes and cares for that child and is nurturing that child and getting that child where they need to be, and they're partnering with that parent with the same goals and objectives to have the same end outcome. And I think that's the difference between just providing a service and being a partner on that journey with them. And that's where we have gotten, and it's taken a long time to get here, but that's it's so much more synergistic when you have that partnership, because you're not fighting those battles. You're not fighting each other every step of the way. You're not having to demand that they come to you for certain things. They want to come to you. So I think it's a great place to get to.
I'm reminded of a quote from a dear friend, Jeremy Smith, who talked about how, I went from being the first thing on the cutting block when times got bad to being seen as the department that would turn the lights off if the organization never went that way, right? That's a significant 180 from how I think a lot of L&D teams feel about themselves right now. So can you give us some examples? I want to ask sort of a two-part question, my friend, if you don't mind. So give us some examples of how you were able to align some programs you did that aligned to performance objectives. And one thing I love about this world is that there's often metrics to come with that. I mean, I chased metrics in training for 20 years, and besides attendance and pass fail, kind of, and maybe how they felt, that's kind of it. By the way, most of which most businesses don't care about, to be frank.
That's true. And
can you take us there?
That is true. They don't, as far as the learning metrics are concerned, but if you can turn it into a dollar figure for them, right, then they start to care. But one of the things that we did is we wanted to meet people where they were, and we had gotten our name out. We had been having the conversations with the business unit leaders, but the people that would be affecting the most change on the ground are going to be your line managers. They're going to be the people that are out there in front of the customer. They have the new hires and the promoted employees that are struggling to get to that performance level. So we started attending meetings with our line managers. We started getting to know what are their struggles, what do they need, what are some of your biggest problems that you have when a new hire comes to you after they've come out of training and they come to you and they're ready to stand in front of a customer for the first time. What are some of the biggest struggles that they have? And we would always have a few that were very similar, but every region or every center was a little bit different. Everything was a little bit, they all had different problems, right? Some of the things that we were able to do relatively quickly is improve our audit scores. So that was one of the things that was like a ringing bell for everybody, is that people just don't understand that. It's not something that they get in training. It's not something we do with that, but it was something we could do like as an add-on, where we kind of provided support around what that looks like. What does an audit look like? What do you need to be prepared for? And in doing that, we improved our audit scores by 3 points over a period of a few years. So that was fantastic. The big one happened kind of slowly, but we used to have a much longer program. So they would be away from their centers and with us for 3 weeks or 2 weeks at a time. And that was great because they needed it, but also by making things more automated, putting things out there, providing more support, we were able to reduce that time significantly. So keeping them at that same performance and that same level that they were expecting, we were able to reduce the proficiency time by 13% for new hires, just coming straight into their center. So that was huge. And that saved them a lot of time. It got them back in front of the customer a lot faster. And if you need to hire someone, you don't have time to really wait a month really for them to get up to speed, right? You need them right then. So then, obviously there's always the bottom line. There's always the dollar figure that people are looking for to make sure that they're getting their bang for their buck or whatever. So we were able to implement some changes in how we allocated our costs to our customers. And we were doing it just based on, you took a course or you attended a training, this is how much it costs. But we saw that the more business units we were reaching, the more they weren't used to having to pay for training because that wasn't part of their repertoire. So the more we were reaching, the more we were getting kind of kickback, like, well, I don't know if we can really afford that. And we thought, my gosh, we can't price ourselves out of our own organization where they don't think they can afford us, right? We want it to be accessible. We don't ever want someone to feel like they can't get help or get support because it costs too much money in your own organization, right? So we were able to kind of change that allocation and having our design team allocating their hours towards projects. So the people that are requesting projects, they're getting a lot of those allocated dollars now instead of it costing to come to training. So that saved the training costs about, I think it was about 10% that we saved for people not having to pay to come into training. So that was huge. And then people saw that and they're like, okay, yeah, that helps, or that makes a huge difference. And now we can send more people, or we can take part of your performance support stuff. 'Cause there's always a buy-in to everything. So I think that just listening to those business unit leaders and letting them know that we're not here to make it be difficult. Everything we want is to be accessible. We want everybody to have the same opportunities. So any time we could listen and turn around and provide something to them, I think was great on our end to build that partnership, but then also was great for them to feel like they were able to send more people. They were able to participate in ways that they couldn't have done before.
I'm really intrigued by the shadowing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't think L&D does enough of that, right? We sort of passively wait back for someone to knock on our door, or we might go out and do what my colleague used to call the dotting for dollars thing.
Yep.
But it was still kind of the same thing on a different turf, right? Your approach was very different. It was a lot of listening and understanding and empathizing. Did you see a change in how the line of business sees you now? Did you see, or the relationship what you have with them? Is it different because of that?
It is. I think that kind of got us out there as someone that they would come to for when they had an issue or they needed help. We were one of their phone a friends. You know, I use that term all the time.
Yeah, I love that.
But they really used us for that. We became, anytime we had a change in software, a change in application that we were pushing out as an organization, we were always listed as one of the help numbers or one of the troubleshooting areas that we would be. So we were out there a lot, just kind of amongst, all of the line employees or the line managers, just kind of helping them do what they do every day. We have our team is amazing. We have a lot of amazing people that know the business well enough to be able to kind of hang alongside them and see and pick up on areas that they could improve in efficiency, or pick up in areas that if they did this, it would lessen, a transaction by 10 seconds or whatever. So
brilliant.
I think just spending that time with them gives them this feeling that we understand their business. We understand their customer. We understand what they're having to be held up to every single day. So yeah, I think that helps a lot. And I think just putting ourselves in that position to partner with them and even not just at the manager level or at the business unit leader level, but at that individual employee performer level. They know who to contact if they have a question. They get our information at the very beginning. We have great facilitators that are an amazing face of our department that they get to see. So it just really, from the very beginning, they kind of see who we are and what we're able to do. And it's been very helpful. So then, they're like, oh, should we call so-and-so? Because, we have this question. And so we are able to get a seat at the table a lot more than we were 10 years ago, not because we bullied our way in or because we pushed people down, but because we were walking alongside of them. Or like, hey, we could help you with that. Like, hey, give us a call. Like, we know what we can do this. We can partner with you guys.
Yeah. It's that leading into the partner role, right? And that's what you did. You became a trusted advisor, a trusted phone a friend, I love the word you kept using over and over, Suzanne, which is if I have a question about doing something or one of your teams saw an efficiency, none of that was an outline, a course in e-learning, or a knowing thing, or and there's still an element of that. That's part of the 5 moments. We're awful sure that we always reinforce that. But you get there by the shift and the fundamental difference in the way your team is seen, in the first place. It sounds like such a goofy question, but again, I think it's one of those things that I think L&D feels we're more there than we are. But why is it so important for an L&D department to be aligned with strategic goals and initiatives of an organization? I mean, I can't believe we're asking that, but I honestly think that, again, I think it's one of those elephants in the room that we just assume. Because who would say training's bad? I don't know a C-suite person that would say, no, we're not going to have any training here. The flip side of that is I don't know the real value or the link to strategic goals that they see.
Mm-hmm. So I think as far as alignment and why it is important for a learning and development organization to be aligned with their business unit for the organization is about the performer ultimately. It all comes down to that person that's in front of the customer, the person that's on the phone, the person in the call center. Being aligned to the business unit objectives and initiatives is so critical for that person because they are being pulled a million different directions and they have goals, they have sales, they have all of these things that they have to meet. And then if you have a learning development department that comes in and they're like, okay, but that may be how you guys do it, but this is what we're going to teach you. Or that may be what you do daily, but here's the structure of our course, and it doesn't align at all, and it's a completely different manual. And so they're like, well, this is a waste of my time, but I guess I have to do this in order to get to this next level, right? So if we are in the trenches with them and we're walking alongside them and we're aligned not only with their line manager but with the business unit leader and with the organizational leaders, we are presenting the same message. We are just another conduit to get them to where they need to be. And we're not creating a dissonance. We're not saying, okay, well, that's the business unit, but this is what you need to know. You might never do it, but this is what you have to know. We have to be aligned. We have to know what the organization's goals are. We have to know what that performer's goals are. Maybe they have an individual goal that we need to deal with that also aligns, but this person wants to do something different. It's just listening. I think the whole concept of alignment is listening and communicating as effectively and as much as you can. It's the only way you're going to hear what they need. It's the only way you're going to be able to solve their problems and be a partner.
You know, that's what's I've always loved about workflow analysis is that although it is now a tool in our toolkit to build something, I've always been blown away by how part of the activity is always the business going, wait, what? You really get me. You're aligning to what I do versus the outline I come out with in the course, and then having to somehow make the two look like they align. Right? This is just so different. So in your journey, friend, and it has been one, right? Yes. What's been the good, bad, and ugly? Give us. I'm out there listening, going, my gosh, I want to get there.
Absolutely.
What went great? What ahas were along the way?
Yeah, I'll start with the ugly because then we can end on a positive note for this question, right? I think there's always that thing you wish you could have done differently, or that direction you took that was the wrong turn. A few years ago, we missed a huge mark in one of our business units' needs, in that they had been asking, and they had this huge need for support in their workflow, but it was in an area that we didn't really have a lot of interaction with. And so it just, at that moment, it was not something that we pursued in a way that we should have. And so that business unit took it upon themselves, and they created an amazing support for themselves that they use every day, that they've then brought to other people. And so they've kind of, done the octopus arm with what they have, and it's great. And it does what they need. And I think now we're in a place where we can affect them in a much more positive way. We have more tools and we have a lot more knowledge in that area. And so we're having to kind of earn that trust back and let them know and earn that partnership back in that area. And we're great partners in other areas, but it was just this one particular need that they had that just we did not meet. And we're working on getting that back and kind of improving that partnership. But that was a big miss, a big train wreck, I guess. But as far as ahas and positives that have come along the way, I think a lot of it is just that learning and development, or 20-25 years ago, corporate training has changed so much. And if you think like just 20 years ago, how different it was. What we used to say, or the things that we would say in meetings, about almost like we were trying to kind of take over their job or take over their processes and tell them how to do their job, and they weren't being efficient and they weren't being effective. Instead of letting them be the experts in their own field and let us be the experts in our field, and bring those two expertise together to create something that works for everybody. I think that was it was almost like when it got said out loud, it was like, well, that makes so much sense and that's so simple, but yeah, why didn't we say that before? Like, why was that not at the forefront of everything that we said before? We aren't always the experts in the business units line of business. How can we be? You know, they're changing and evolving as much as we are, and we don't expect them to keep up, you know, with our line of business. So I think that was a huge aha. Just it seems so simple, but we're not the experts in the line of business. And that's why the workflow analysis is just so effective and so important, because I think it shines a huge light on that we really don't know what they do, right? We don't know what their workflow is. We know what their policy and their procedures are, but what is that, you know, in the daily work? So I think that has shown a huge light on our expertise and their expertise, and that's why we have to come together and work on it together. And that was huge. And I think to start that, one of the things that we did is we did it on ourselves. I lead operations, and my team has spent a month, I think now, since the summit ended, working on building our own operations mind map for all of our workflows that we have. And it has been eye-opening for all of us. I mean, we all are cross-trained to do everything, but to listen to somebody else's workflow doing that same thing, it's just like, whoa, that, you know, it's been so eye-opening. So to think, if we can do that within our own department where we know what everybody does, basically, how amazing is that to be able to be successful in that analysis with another business unit and really get to the crux of what they're doing and where their problems are.
Brilliant.
It's fun to gain that perspective, because it changes everything. It changes how you communicate. It changes how you design, how you report, how you just everything. It just changes the game a lot.
You know, I love that shift that you brought up from us being the experts to being the experts in content to being the expert in designing for context, right? A significant shift. I've watched Con go into the most bizarre of organizations going, how are you going to go in there? You know nothing about running a hospital. Yet you're going to help.
Right.
But what I've learned over the years is, to your point, and that is that when we put ourselves in the content king, I think that was the beginning of the disconnect from those that are in the business, and it seemed very different. So, friend, let's put a bow around this. It's just been really spectacular. You have done something, whether you realize you've done it or not, because I know it's been an evolutionary journey, but you've got a seat at the table. You really do. You've earned a remarkable level of trust from that organization. And I think that's a Herculean swing, and where any L&D worth their salt wants to be. If you could sum up for our folks, how do you feel you got there and ultimately now are seen in a very different way?
I think a lot of it is nurturing relationships, nurturing how you communicate, and being able to be flexible, to be fluid, and to kind of roll with things that happen, because everything is changing and shifting, and you cannot be so hard set on a course and not be able to turn right or turn left when you have to. Business units needs change, customers change, the world changes every day. So I think just having that flexibility and having a group and a department that can work together and be flexible. You know, we always talk about, like, within our own meetings, you know, we have a safe space where we can, like, if we have to vent and we have to get something out, get it out in here, because we have to come to our business units with calm, and, you know, we've got this and it's not a big deal, and of course we can make that change, of course we can make that shift. Well, you know, all inside we're just like cringing, but of course we can, because we're their partner, right? We're in this together. We're not going to leave you out to dry. So I think a lot of it is just nurturing, but also communication and throwing your seeds out to various business units and letting them do a lot of the spreading of those seeds. And whenever you have something that's worked really well for a business unit, it's just word of mouth. They'll talk to their friends that are in this other business unit, and kind of they'll do a lot of your own advertising and marketing for you. And then I think also just remaining consistent and making sure that what your output is quality. We're working on a quality management system, we're working on governance, but just making sure that you're consistent and your quality is high always, because it just takes one really bad output to just burn a bridge, and that it's so much harder to build it back if you make that misstep. So
yeah, it takes a second to lose trust and a lifetime to gain it, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, but I have to tell you, friend, what a remarkable example of doing this well. I mean, it's you're when I saw your group at the summit, I've watched the evolution in your team over the years, and there was a confidence there.
Yeah.
You know, there was a self-assuredness there, not an arrogance.
Yeah.
But and it was so inspiring to see that, because you're right. It changes being in the business is hard and scary, and you're right in there with them, but you have a confidence in the process and the team you've built and the partnership that you've done, and you'll figure it out.
Absolutely.
That's really a remarkable thing. Well, thank you so much for who you are, the team you represent, for sharing all you have today. It means an awful lot to those that are listening. And so thank you so much, friend. Can't thank you enough.
Absolutely. Good talking to you.
You too.
Well, that's it for this episode of the 5 Moments of Need Performance Matters series. We look forward to future conversations around how to best put the 5 moments of need into practice. We welcome your feedback and can be reached on Twitter using my Twitter handle at BMOSH, as well as our 5 Moments of Need website, which is www.5momentsofneed.com. We hope you're finding these helpful and will subscribe to future episodes. Have a great day, friends.